Hey everybody, Dennis Wood here. Today we're going to go over what I think is the smartest chain waxing setup on the planet. You can comment if you think you found something better. But what I've done here is become a huge fan of waxing chains. And why do you wax chains? Well, in this bike behind me, this chain has around 1,500 kilometers of wear on it. I'm using this Park Tool CC4, and when we go and do a test on this chain, which is done on the bike by engaging these tabs, squeezing here, this chain wear indicator doesn't drop down at all, which tells me that the chain is not reached even 50% wear. In fact, based on how far that chain wear tool will drop into the links, I would say it's not even 20, probably not even 10%. If you want to find out more about chain waxing and why you might want to do it, visit Zero Friction Cycling, which is a website by a chap in Australia who does a lot of testing. I'm not going to talk about why you would want to wax. I've done it now for 2 years on all my bikes, and I won't go back to oil for lots of reasons. This would be one of them. The drivetrain stays completely clean. The chain stays super clean. And then maintenance and cleaning becomes super simple after that. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But I want to talk about my setup here with a couple different varieties of things that I've tried for chain waxing. First, if you're interested in using this Silca Secret Chain Blend Hot Melt Wax, you can order that from Silca online. I can throw a link into the description. And they do have a wax melter that you can buy with set temperatures. And you may just want to go that way. As you might guess, it's not quite my style. I kind of went with a few different options. This is the ubiquitous, slow cooker. This is a small one, and maybe 20. You can probably buy these for about 25 bucks. It has low, high, low, off, low, high, and warm. And I've marked it here because I've measured it 65 watts on low, and high I believe is 116 watts. Sorry, 112 watts, and warm is 46 watts. So this works and it's safe, but it takes forever to heat up the wax. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you why I'm using these rice cookers, which are not recommended, but I think are great for a couple of reasons. So we'll get into that and we'll just kind of go over how these things work. These, by the way, 20 bucks each. Okay, so we'll set this slow cooker aside, which I will not be using for wax heating any longer. We'll go over to the rice cookers. Okay, so we've got a couple of rice cookers here. This one is just got water in it, and I'm using it for cleaning. Again, once you start waxing chains like this one, which is wired up, cleaning them becomes super easy. It's just a dip into hot, in this case, boiling water does the trick. And this is our wax pot, which is full of this stuff, okay? It's currently, well, the lid will be a little bit stuck. These just lift out, and you can see in the bottom there's a little disc. And what's cool about rice cookers is it's spring-loaded, so this thing won't even power up if you try to put an empty container out, which I think is good. And then there's a couple settings here to turn them on and off to go into a cook cycle. And then what happens here is normally rice will cook, the water will boil off, and then while it's boiling, the temperature stays at 100 degrees Celsius. When the rice is cooked, the temperature rises above 100, and then with some magic with a magnet, the magnet's attractive properties change with heat, and basically it turns this thing off automatically. So what's kind of nice is that if you forget or you mess something up here, you're not going to cause a fire. This thing won't go above 100. When it goes above 100 degrees Celsius, it will go into warm mode, and I'll show you that. But all we have to do basically get it started here, I have some code written, and I have a temperature probe in here. We'll talk about that temperature probe. It's right here into the wax. It's one of these, and we'll go over exactly what that setup looks like. I'm just using Habitat at home, so I'm using a little bit of automation, and I wrote some very simple code, which we'll look at. But basically what we're going to do is go ahead and turn on the garage wax plug, which is this. This is a 300 watt dimmer that you would use for, a lamp. So we're just going to go ahead and turn that on. And you'll notice here, it's now pulling 277 watts. The wax temperature is 69.3 Fahrenheit. And my target, which I can set here, you can see when I click here, I can actually enter the number. And I've got it set at 167. And that's about 75 Celsius, which is where Silca wants you to heat this wax too. So we're gonna wait until this heats up. I'll keep shooting so you can see what's going on. Maybe we'll speed it up, but I've got a clock here and you can see it's 7:07. We are going to see how long this takes to heat up. What the automation is doing right now, it's monitoring the temperature, and as we approach the set point, it's gonna start to dial back the watts. You'll see we're at 281 watts. You'll also see it here in this yellow box where again, that simple little bit of code, what I found is if we creep up on temp, it will start to ramp back on the watts so we don't exceed it. And it surprisingly will keep this wax within a few degrees Fahrenheit. It's super accurate. So you can sort of dial in your temps. I should mention, Silca has something called a strip chip, which normally when you take a chain like this, you would clean it in solvent. And Silca has a method of just adding, we'll call it a block of material into this wax that will basically clean the chain for you. That requires a higher temp. It requires 125 degrees. So if you want 125 degrees, this setup is probably not for you because it won't go above 100. But I just cleaned my chains old school. When you first start with a chain, you got to get all the oil off of it. After that, you're not using any solvent again. You're just using hot water. But I've got the, oh yeah, let's turn the hot water on. Oh, it is on, good. So we'll see how long that takes too. And we'll go over cleaning as well. All right, what we're gonna do here is just change the temperature variable. It's reading 167. I'm just gonna punch in 170. And that's gonna be the set temp that the system's gonna try and keep at. I've just turned on the garage chain wax plug. I just basically that little 300 watt dimmer sitting on the bench. And we sped it up here about 6,000%. You'll see how quickly it reaches the temperature and then starts modulating the dimmer to keep it right in our target. Now, when we start off with cold wax, it does overshoot a bit, but you see right now it's going to settle in at 170, and it's going to stay pretty darn close between 160, let's say 168 and 172. It's a really simple bit of code. We can just go over that without getting too in depth to see how it does it. Really quite elegant. All right, we're here in Habitat, which is again the Habitat, an automation hub that's relatively inexpensive. The one thing that we need to do to make everything work here is we need to go into settings and we need to create a hub variable. And this hub variable is what we're using, this garage wax temp variable. We're just creating a variable so that we can create the dashboard, which will let us input whatever our target temp is, whether it's 170 or 100 or whatever. And once we have that hub variable, we can go here into apps and we can create a basic rule. And what this rule does, again, this is just in Rule Machine, which is the built-in place in Habitat where you define rules, how to control the behavior of these things. And in this case, we're just controlling. All right, while the water and the wax is heating up in our $20 rice cookers, you can see we're up to 82 degrees now. This thing's still running full tilt. It's 7:10 at night, so we'll keep that clock running so you can see exactly how much time this takes. What I wanted to talk about is how do you get a temperature probe that you can use. One of the really nice things about this, the rice cooker, is the caps have a vent right here, and it's just the right size to fit a probe through. You might have to you can just actually sneak that right through. You can see it goes through. So it makes it really nice. The rice cooker with this vent is exactly the right size for these temperature probes. And I'll get you a spec for these. You can buy these probes. They're ubiquitous. They're like $6. Actually, I think it's like $3 for one of them. And this part here is it's called a Shelly Uni Plus, which is currently not plugged in. Let's go ahead and plug it in. Do we have a free plug? Okay, I'm gonna have to sort of plug in for this, but it's a tiny little piece. Shelly Uni Plus is the name. This actually connects to Wi-Fi. There's another product that I use a lot for these temperature probes, which is called a Fibro Smart Implant, which is a little bit easier to manage, but this is at $22, I think, for this piece. And it can run code and on its own, and it has, it's just coated in a clear coating, so there's no problem touching it. It's low voltage. I'm running it here with just a standard 12 volt wall wart. I've got some boiling going on already. So we're 71238. We'll just let that boil away. So basically, this Shelly comes with a number of, these are dry contacts. So these are probes you could use for, these are contacts you could use, say, on a thermostat. And then it has a number of different inputs. It's almost like the universal implant. You need to provide 12 volts to it, and you can see I've got some wires here. I've just got some insulation on the end of these. But what I've done is I've hooked up these temperature probes. They're called one wire, but they actually have 3 wires. There's a black wire, a red wire, and a yellow wire. And the way this goes to the Shelly, Shelly's yellow goes to the probe's red, Shelly's blue goes to the probe's yellow, and Shelly's green goes to the probe's black, which is ground. So, and these things can be extended. I've used network cable before, 3 of them, literally like $6 or $7. They're stainless, and I use them for a bunch of different things. I use them to manage my solar system. In the house, I've got these measuring water temperatures. I've got one on the roof. This one is basically a Fibro door. The one that I'm using is hiding in here is a Fibro door sensor. It's like a security sensor. And I've got a 5-volt panel here and a couple of rechargeable batteries. So this used to be sitting on my roof. But now I just use it for the wax setup. So it's very much like this. It's just a temp probe with one of these guys hooked up. And I'll get you the name of these. I never get these, the DSB 1820s. I'll get the correct name up on screen so you can see what it is. Now, we've got water boiling here. It's been boiling for a bit. And our wax is up to 100 degrees. It's heating up. And you can see that we're still at full tilt. By the way, it's running 280 watts, which is about it's over twice what the slow cooker, which I have over in the corner. Now, the nice thing about the water and the rice cooker is you can just take your wax chain and throw it in here, swish it for a second or two, give it a shake. Any dirt will come off with the wax, and you can see I've got one gleaming, shining chain. This particular chain, I believe it's off my full suspension mountain bike. Oh no, this is my other 10-speed chain. So it's used, this is my backup chain for my fat bike. The 11-speed chain is used elsewhere. So we'll just set this over on the bench for now because it's hot. There's no need to dry this per se because the wax will just displace it. But what I'm going to do, again, note the time there. This thing only took, I don't know, 5 or 6 minutes to boil the water. What I've done here is I put it into warm mode by clicking this little lever up. Our wax is actually, we've got liquid wax in here. You can see we're getting to 123.7. We've got a chain that's ready to roll here. So we'll throw it into the wax when we reach the temp. Actually, what we can do here is we can just open this up and throw that in there like so. Actually, we'll just bend the wire down. And the probe, we just want to make sure the probe is just in the wax. There's our boiling water. You can see there's a little wax. Well, you won't see it till later, but there's some wax there. And there's our melting wax. We're at 123, so we're not quite up to the temperature that we need, but you would note that the wax is pretty molten in there. I'll just set this over here for a second. Give this a stir. And you can see these tungsten disulfide, which is the black, kind of pearly looking particles in there. And this wax is, we're at 153 already. So this thing, of course, if we have the probe in air, it's gonna just got a little tie wrap right here to keep it, basically to suspend the temperature probe up. What happened here is the automation code dialed this dimmer back, and it's dialed back to, I can't tell there, but it's dialed back to about 60%, I do believe. And we haven't quite reached 167, but what I found is that if you keep piling in the juice into this thing, it will basically overshoot the temp. So what I'm doing here is, and again, I'll throw up the code. It's really simple. It's basically just saying if this probe reaches the temperature I set, which is a variable in the hub, most of these sensors like the Shelly Uno and the Fibro Smart Implant, I mentioned those two because they're currently available. So the Fibro Smart Implant's about $65. Can be a little bit easier to use, but it still needs a wall wart. But the Shelly, a little harder to get set up in Habitat. But the nice thing about Shelly is that if you're good in scripting, you could actually use a Shelly dimmer, use the input or a combination of Shelly products. because Shelly does have an add-on sensor. It's like a backpack that goes onto their dimmers. The only problem with the Shelly dimmers is, from what I've seen, they don't go up to 300 watts. That dimmer, it's an old one I had kicking around. It's good up to 300 watts. And these are running at full tilt. What do we have at full blast? I think it was 280, just under that. So it works out perfectly. You'll see at some point very soon, we're at 160 degrees. We're at 156 watts, by the way. So at this, about 60% or so, this dimmer is feeding out 150. Oh, there you go. You see it just slid it right back to about 25%. And you see our watts here being pulled through the dimmer. So basically I'm setting the dimmer to a lower setting, about 25%, I do believe, and it's about 37 watts. So you can play around with the dimmer. That's super slick. And what I'm finding is you sort of bump the power down when you get to your target. We're at 170, by the way. It's 7:20, so we'll have to look at what time we started, but I think it's about 12 minutes for the wax to heat up. If you're using a slow cooker, it's like an hour. So you like turn it on and go for a ride or something. So this is pretty much good to go. I can actually turn this off. Silca tells you to heat this wax to about 75 degrees. Again, if you're using the strip chip, they want you to go to 125. So if you're using a strip chip, this setup's not for you, but just for plain wax, or maybe you're doing your own paraffin combination. I like the Silca stuff because it's been tested and tested extremely well. Essentially, the chain will probably outlast me, to be honest. I re-wax these chains every 300 or 400 kilometers of riding. You'll see they'll be nice and smooth, and then they'll start getting a little bit louder, almost sounding a little bit metallic, and then you know it's time. I don't wait for that. I usually, after about maybe 4 or 5 or 6 rides, I'll go through this. And literally it's, you know, by the time you plug everything in, and again, I'm talking like crazy here, but to heat this up, maybe 10 or 12 minutes, and you're literally taking the chain out, and we'll just give her a little swish and a dip here. At one point, Silca was saying, you know, bring the wax down to 150 degrees or so and then take it out. They're recommending that you don't do that anymore. Just take it out at basically 75 degrees Celsius, which is about, I think it's 167 Fahrenheit, which is what this thing is set at right now. And you can see I'm set for 167. I'm at 169.8. And it's basically, because I've dialed down to 37 watts, it's just maintaining the temperature. And if it drops down a bit, this is an unheated garage normally, and I ride all winter, as you might guess, by this bike. So this will just basically monitor. It might have, if it's a really cold day, it might have to put in some more watts. But what I found surprisingly keeps this wax at exactly the temp that I need it to be, or to what you set it. Again, within 3 or 4 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's my setup, waxing with a couple $20 rice cookers. I bought 2 so I could just have one dedicated for hot water, literally for cleaning chains. So I have a couple of bikes, and then there's the rest of the family bikes. So, and then there's my brother and I ride together, so I do his chains as well. So there you go. There's what I think is the smartest wax melting system on the planet. Comment if you don't think so. Pretty simple. For the cost of one of these Shellys, again, I already had some Habitat hub in my home, but you could, if you're using SmartThings or any of the variety of automation systems out there, it's pretty simple. These Shellys work, and the Fibro Smart implants will work with most hubs out there. So really, it's just a bit of time. I'm already using temperature probes for, again, solar pool heating and a bunch of other things. So for me, this was just a fun little project. So I hope you found that useful. One more thing. I wanted to talk about quick links, because when you're waxing, you're breaking the chain, or you're disconnecting via the master link. And a lot of these master links from SRAM and Shimano, they'll say like 5 uses, and then you should get a new master link. So what I found is these Connex, but it's just a Connex 10 speed. I have an 11 speed. They're actually on this, it's on this chain right now. And the Connex, maybe we can get a close up of that. It's a stainless steel bit, and it doesn't quite use the same snap setup. It's like it's a bit of a semicircle. They are directional, so you do have to kind of pay a little bit of attention when you're putting them on. But the Connex links, they don't really have a disconnect and reconnect rating. It's basically connect and reconnect as much as you'd like. I find it easier when waxing the chains to actually put the master link on, like connect it. And then because if you wax without it, which many folks recommend, it makes it kind of hard to reconnect. Whereas if you wax with it on, you can disconnect it and that kind of gets the wax out of the way. So with the Connex or whatever, I like waxing with the master link on. So, sorry, we've covered everything now. The automation system, you can see here, I'm at 169 degrees, which is 2 degrees over, and we're dialed back to literally 10 watts. So this system is dialed, the dimmer, the automation hub, which is in the house there, has dimmed this thing down to almost nothing. I'm finding that the temperature is within, again, once it settles in a bit, it's within about 3 or 4 degrees. So that's it. Chain waxing, master links, how to do it with some inexpensive rice cookers. Hope you found it helpful. If you did, a like and subscribe would be very much appreciated.